What is going on, trainers? Drumvillain here, bringing you some more Pokemon Go PvP content, and today we're taking a look at an Ultra League team. And specifically we're looking at an Ultra League team with Suicune on the safe swap position. Now I've been wanting to use this Pokemon in Ultra League for a video for you guys before, and I've been wondering what kind of team to try and fit in, what Pokemon I think it complements well. And we've ended up going for quite a generalised team, and that's with Umbreon on the lead. Obviously Umbreon is XL, it's level 50, it's got the best buddy boost. Muk has quite a solid PvP IV spread, and the Suicune is just, it is what it is. I got it traded over to me for the shiny as I couldn't get one on the Suicune raid day, and these are just the IVs that I got for it. Obviously if you have PvP IVs on a Suicune, it will be even more bulky than it is here and will serve you pretty well. Now, the reason Suicune makes such an interesting safe swap is because it has access to Snarl, which generates energy very quickly and hits a lot of the things in the meta either for neutral or super effective damage. And also it's got Ice Beam and Hydro Pump, which are quite hard hitting moves. Ice Beam hits Giratina pretty hard, Hydro Pump hits everything pretty hard since it's stab, and it gets there relatively quickly thanks to that Snarl. Just a quick side note, if you do like the content, consider subscribing, it's free, and let's jump straight into some battles. So, first match up against Jules' crew, and we're gonna pull a Gyarados lead. This is a pretty reasonable lead. All the Pokemon on our team do okay. Against Gyarados, Umbreon does pretty well just because it has such massive bulk, and Gyarados has to go for Aqua Tails. If it had Hydro Pump or Outrage, it could go for them, but most Gyarados in the Ultra League are running Aqua Tail and Crunch is going to be resisted, so they're going to be throwing Aqua Tails, which you don't really have to worry about shielding. The main thing is that the Dragon Breath damage over time does add up, but at the same time it's not super threatening. You can see Umbreon's just taking it like a champion. Now they've shielded, so we could consider shielding ourselves to put some more pressure on. Now that we've not shielded that, the Gyarados could probably commit a shield here and choose to farm down. We get a little greedy with energy, and we're going to have to shield to get this energy off, which is not ideal for us. We're going to go for the last resort because, as you can see, the foul play doesn't do quite half. It does about 45%, and since we're only going to get one move off, we might as well throw the last resort because it does slightly more damage than foul play and probably would have risked to knock the Gyarados out. We don't mind that they've gone down 2 shields. We're going to get massively ahead on energy with our Alolan Muk. Muk with an energy lead is very scary, especially with shields down and when we're running Sludge Wave and Dark Pulse. It's worth shielding the second Aqua Tail, I think, just to not get too low. With the Muk, we've got a lot of energy, and they've got a Lapras. And this is not ideal because the Lapras is going to be able to get to a Surf and take us out before we can take them out, just because they've got so much bulk. So we're going to catch the Surf on Suicune because it's 4 Ice Shards to the Surf, so it's quite easy to call when they were going to throw that. And then they're going to bring out a Giratina because obviously Lapras is their better matchup against the Muk, and since this Giratina is running Shadow Claw, it's going to struggle to do damage against the Alolan Muk. They'd have to throw a Dragon Claws to chip it down, whereas they had to take a gamble that Suicune doesn't have Ice Beam here, and we do have Ice Beam, and as you can see it did a good chunk of damage. 2 Ice Beams plus the Snarls should probably be just enough to take out the Giratina, but we don't mind if it's not, because then we can farm down with the Alolan Muk. In fact, we're going to swap aggressively here, finish off the Giratina, and hopefully get to this Sludge Wave just before the Lapras throws its next Surf to take us out. This should be enough to take out the Lapras, and if not quite, we might be able to Snarl down with Suicune, but it is, and that's going to give us the win. GG. As you can see, Suicune not really phased by the Giratina. They do go toe-to-toe with each other, but really, Suicune, if you've got Ice Beam, it does have the edge. Now this is a Nightmare lead for Fable. This is why we've got Suicune on the safe swap, so they've got to decide what they want to do. The opponent's sticking around, which means they might not have a good answer for Suicune or really know how to handle it, which could be quite good for us. We get a Hydro Pump off and get it through. There's quite a big chunk of damage, and now they're going to swap out to a Giratina. So we're just going to go straight for the Ice Beam here. They might be thinking we're running Bubble Beam as well. Let it through, hits for good damage. Now, because they've already got a lot of chip damage with that Charm, we can't Snarl them down even if we land this next Ice Beam. It does about 45-46% of Giratina's health, and we would just need a little bit more for that extra Snarl damage to add up and take them out. So we don't mind that there's shield there, because we get the shield out of them, we can bring Umbreon in to handle this Giratina, and then hopefully Muk, with the shield advantage, can sweep the rest of the game. Although that Clefable did build up quite a bit of energy, they're going to swap out aggressively into the Clefable, so we're going to bring Muk in straight away, start farming them down with these poison jabs and get ahead on some energy, because now we'll have a Dark Pulse so we can take out the Giratina straight away. If it does come back in, we need to throw quick. Oh, we don't actually throw when they come in, which is a bit of a shame, because we're going to take this Dragon Claw damage rather than pressuring them to shield if they wanted to get that Dragon Claw off. But either way, we're now going to throw it, take them out, and let's see what they've got in the bag. It's an Obstagoon. This is not good. Obstagoon does pretty well against Alolan Muk, and it does very well against Umbreon. We call that that's going to be a Night Slash and not a Cross Chop. It's a Cross Chop and takes us out, and there's nothing our Umbreon can do here really. The Last Resort's hit for decent chunks of neutral damage, but because it's running counter and Cross Chop, it's just going to be able to wear us down and take us out before we take them out. So the call there really was to shield the Cross Chop with Muk, get at least a Dark Pulse off, which could have pressured a shield out of them, and then the extra chip damage from the poison jabs, we might just have been able to get enough damage off with Umbreon to get rid of them. It's tough to say, it's a very tough spot to be in, having a Clefable and an Obstagoon, so Umbreon really had nowhere to go apart from to be maybe a bit of a sponge for some moves. Maybe we shouldn't have swapped out to Muk straight away against the Clefable, tempted the Clefable to throw a move. Who knows, but GG all the same to my opponent. Suicune did a cracking job on the save swap, being able to do good damage with the Hydro Pump to the Clefable and then getting a shield out of the Giratina as well thanks to that Ice Beam. Next match now we pull a Mandibuzz lead, and it's pretty neutral for Umbreon. Umbreon and Mandibuzz just kind of batter each other with either Aerial Aces and Last Resorts. Not very effective moves in general. So the opponents decided to swap out, which means they've probably got a very good Umbreon answer in the back. And they bring in a Galarian Stunfisk, and we hesitate a little bit. Alolan Muk doesn't really want to see this because Galarian Stunfisk massively resists the poison jabs and the sludge wave and can one-shot pretty much, not quite one-shot with Earthquake, but it's very close to one-shotting. We decided to bring in Suicune because Suicune's a water type and seems like the obvious choice, but also because it's running Snarl, it hasn't got super consistent water type damage. You're having to get to that Hydro Pump and throw it for water damage, so it's not as punishing against a Galarian Stunfisk as say Swampert or Politoed is. So by throwing a Foul Play first with the Umbreon, we were able to put them in Hydro Pump range, which was much better for us. Now when Alolan Muk comes in, and this is, I figured they would have had a harder counter to Umbreon if they were going to swap out of their Mandibuzz, but maybe they were trying to bait out something like a Giratina, I don't know. It's hard to say for sure. Maybe they wanted to bait out a Swampert so that their Alolan Muk was quite free to run around in the back. But we don't mind that our Alolan Muk's against Mandibuzz. When straight for the Sludge Wave, does a nice good chunk of damage to complement the poison jabs adding up. The main concern is that we need to be sure to keep clearing those debuffs, because that Alolan Muk keeps throwing acid sprays and keeps just making every other move hit a lot harder. An Aerial Ace from Mandibuzz isn't particularly threatening to many things, but when your defense is dropped 2 stages, it's a lot worse. Now the Muk comes back in to greet our Umbreon, not Ungeon, when we clear the defense debuff. This isn't too bad. You might think that Umbreon into Alolan Muk is a very bad matchup, but because Umbreon's got all that bulk and they're throwing acid spray, so we don't have to shield, we know that they're probably not running Gunk Shot or Sludge Wave, they're probably running Dark Pulse and Acid Spray. It'd be silly to run triple poison moves really, so we don't have to worry about shielding on Umbreon really, because the Acid Spray is such a weak move, it's not going to be pressuring us to shield. We're going to let this go down, it's probably just another Acid Spray, that's fine. We can get a Foul Play off, this is very nice chip damage. We know we can't get one more Snarl in to get to the Last Resort. Big shout by the opponent letting that through, because if it was a Last Resort, it would have taken them out and we'd have been in a much better position. And we'll let this go through. It is a Dark Pulse, which is very unfortunate. They swap out aggressively, they're trying to take our Pokemon out because the game time is coming up, and we're going to swap to Suicune because Suicune has a slight bit more health than Mandibles. They've got a shield, so we're all going to finish with 2 Pokemon each, and we've got a slight smidgen more health, so we're going to take the win, but that's a super close, good game to my opponent. Heading into the next match against Moleskito, and we pull a Obstagoon lead. An Obstagoon lead might as well be a Charmer or a Fighter for how badly it walls Umbreon. Umbreon really struggles against Obstagoon. You need something else to get some chip damage in, and then maybe Umbreon can go toe-to-toe a little bit, especially if they've not got Cross Chop. You're in a much better position, but then they might have Hyper Beam, and you don't really want to shield an Umbreon against an Obstagoon because it's a bad matchup in general. We're going to swap out to Suicune, and we draw out a Cresselia. And the main issue with Cresselia, you can see we're doing good damage. The Snarls are chipping away very slowly. The Hydro Pumps are hitting for nice big chunks of damage, but it's just that Grass Knot. It's just slightly, it's the same as Cresselia punishing any water type. The Grass Knot just is too energy efficient. It does just too much damage. If you take 2 of them, you're going to get farmed down. So we decide to bring in Umbreon, farm down this Cresselia entirely, have a bit of energy to throw at the Obstagoon when it comes to it. We swap out to Muk aggressively, and they've got a Talonflame. So we're going to go straight for the Sludge Wave. Talonflames don't often shield the first move from an Alolan Muk because they can survive a Dark Pulse comfortably. Bang! It goes through. Now we're in a decent spot. Because we shield this up, we can farm down this Talonflame, and we can put in a lot of work against this Obstagoon with both Muk and Umbreon, because the Poison Jabs are going to add up. These Dark Pulses are going to start getting shields because they haven't got many. They've only got Obstagoon left now, so we'll have to shield something. And Alolan Muk is the most threatening since they know that we've got Sludge Wave. So we get a shield with Dark Pulse. It's not worth throwing a Sludge Wave and risking them shielding that much energy, but they get the boost! And this is GG's. We would have been able to put in a lot more work with this Muk before getting farmed down if they'd have not got the boost, so we're just going to surrender and leave that game there. GG. Obstagoon with the boost definitely coming through for the opponent there. It was going to be very close, and that boost just really pulled it back and put it so much in their favour that there's nothing we could really do. Next match now, and we pull the Dream lead, Giratina, and not just Giratina, Shadow Claw Giratina. Because Giratina with Dragon Breath, if they commit lots of shields in, they can chip you down. You still win, but it does do a lot more damage over time, whereas the Shadow Claws are doing almost nothing to Umbreon. We're just going to build up lots of energy. The Dragon Claws don't hit for enough to be worth shielding. They've hit us with 2 now, and we're barely past 2/3 of our health left. And these 2 Foul Plays are going to hit Giratina very hard. The first one through, they're now below 50%. This second Foul Play is going to get them very low, to the point where we can farm them down with Snarl. We don't need a shield. We get a shield out of them, which is absolutely huge. We're going to get to another Foul Play. This Giratina's built up quite a lot of energy at this point. Maybe they're planning on dipping out with it. They do. They swap out and bring in an Obstagoon, and we bring in Muk, and this might not be the best decision. Suicune would have been a solid choice, but Muk also does pretty well against Obstagoon, especially if you're running Poison Jab, just because that neutral damage does really add up. And if you land a Sludge Wave, they're not pressured to shield here because they're already down a shield. And a lot of Muks run Acid Spray, and this will do big damage and put them in range to be farmed down. They do let it through, monstrous damage, and we can't quite farm down, so we're going to have to shield this to maintain switch control, which is worth it to keep all the energy of Giratina locked towards the Umbreon. Now, it's going to dump energy here into the Muk, and we're going to let this go and then bring in the Umbreon to farm down the Giratina. They swap out aggressively into an Empoleon. And so really bringing in Muk against the Obstagoon was a good shout, because the steel typing of Empoleon double resists the poison moves from Muk. So you're trying to hit them with Dark Pulses, which is fine, but it's just not going to be doing as much over time. The Muk was very well spent against the Obstagoon. Instead, Suicune does well here because it's resisting the waterfalls. The Drill Pecks do hit for neutral and do add up over time. You can see they've hit us with 2 now, and we're down to just below half. But you're going to see here, this Hydro Pump is going to do enough to take out the Empoleon if they do let it through. They do, bang, knocks them out. This Giratina has very, very little health. We're not going to shield this up because we know at absolute minimum that Umbreon can still farm down this Giratina, but we found them down with Snarl, with Suicune, and we're going to take that win. GG. So taking a 3-2 in that first set, and Suicune putting in some really good work in the safe swap position and even in end games there, where it's just able to bulk enough damage and get enough damage off itself to take opponents down. So we're going to jump into the second set of matches now, and we've got in a Bomber Snow lead. Now the Snarls and the Ice Beams from Suicune do good neutral damage here in this matchup, but we do really want to stay in with Umbreon unless they swap out, because we do really want to keep Suicune away from this thing. Those energy balls are going to hit pretty hard. They even hit Umbreon quite hard, and Umbreon is an absolute truck of a Pokemon, can tank so many hits, and it still hits very, very hard. Though these foul plays does hit for good damage since they're a shadow, so the extra damage really does add up. We're going to go for the last resort here, and this is a mistake. I think if you throw 2 last resorts, you can probably Snarl down a Shadow or Bomber Snow, but you can't throw a foul play and a last resort and Snarl down. The slight extra damage doesn't make that much difference otherwise. But we're going to throw a foul play. I think they're going to catch on. Was that a Charizard? They caught on a Charizard, okay. So we're just going to bring in Suicune here, and it's a wing attack Charizard, which is probably the worst case scenario for a Suicune, really. But as you can see, it's not adding up that much on damage. The Dragon Claws chip away a little bit. They get another Dragon Claw off, but we're not pressured to shield. We know it's not a Blast Burn, and the Blast Burn would be resisted and wouldn't take us out. Now we're going to throw an Ice Beam, which is probably going to get the Charizard low, maybe not KO, but now we can probably Snarl down. I suppose really we should have just thrown a Hydro Pump, but honestly we weren't sure how much damage a Ice Beam would do. Charizard is still pretty squishy in the Ultra League, but Suicune is so defense weighted. Now we make a massive mistake there. We brought in Umbreon hoping to Snarl down or catch some energy from the Abomasnow, and the Abomasnow gets a bunch of energy, whereas instead we should have swapped out aggressively to Muk, and we probably could have poison jabbed them down before they knew what was happening, and then saved that bit of health on the Umbreon to potentially catch a move later on in the game, because now they've got a Dragonite in the back. They farm us down before we get a move off, but we've got 100 energy on the Suicune. This is going to be close. We're probably going to have to shield something here, depends if they throw. They don't throw. We get another Ice Beam off. The opponent really should have thrown a Dragon Claw straight away there, because now we've got a shield and we can probably farm down this Abomasnow. It's going to be close. We get a Snarl through when they throw. This isn't going to be enough to take us out unless they've got 2 Weather Balls here, and I don't think they do. We Snarl them down and take the win. GG. A big mistake by us bringing Umbreon into the Abomasnow rather than just swapping very quickly into the Muk and trying to snipe them down, but they made a mistake as well in not throwing the Dragon Claw straight away against our Suicune, and it all balanced out in the end. Now this opponent has an Alolan Muk lead, and they actually choose to swap out, which I found quite confusing because Alolan Muk does well against Umbreon if they're running Poison Jab, so I'm figuring maybe they're running Snarl, because Snarl Alolan Muk struggles quite a bit more to wear Umbreon down over time. But they bring in a Milotic, and we're not particularly sure what to do with this. Milotic is also a pretty versatile safe swap for the Ultra League, and having that nice water coverage as well. And we actually decide that the best bet is to stay in with Umbreon and just line up one of our other Pokemon with their Alolan Muk. If it is a Snarl Alolan Muk, our Poison Jab Alolan Muk will do better against it, and either way Suicune can put in some work against it. We're going to get to this foul play here, and it's going to mean they have to give up a shield or give up swap. They do let it through, and we take out the Milotic. So now the Muk comes in, farms us down. It is a Poison Jab Alolan Muk, so I am just unsure now why they swapped out unless they have a hard counter to Umbreon in the back. Maybe a Charmer, maybe something like Obstagoon, but it's really hard to tell at this point. So we decide to swap out to Suicune, see what they decide to do, and also clear the Acid Spray debuff off of our Alolan Muk, but they're choosing to stay in. So now we're thinking maybe this was a mistake. We land a Hydro Pump, which is brilliant, but also we can't farm down. Resisted Snarls hit for almost nothing. This is probably worth shielding, but we don't. We let it through. It's a Dark Pulse, hits us for good damage. We've still got 2 shields apiece across the board, and we're able to farm down before they throw, which is absolutely fantastic for us, and they've got a Gramble in the back. So, Charmer, Fairy, this is brilliant, right? You'd think so, but look at that Shadow Charm damage. It's absolutely disgusting. We should not have thrown the Sludge Wave. We should have thrown 3 Dark Pulses, because 1 Dark Pulse would have done enough damage with the Poison Jabs to take them out, and that would have been our game. But we made the mistake, and that's going to cost us the match. GG. Definitely forgot for a split second that we were 2 shields apiece across the board when I threw that Sludge Wave. They were obviously going to shield whatever we threw. Now, here we pull another Giratina lead. This one swaps out straight away because it is such a bad matchup for Giratina to be against an Umbreon, regardless of what move they've got. They bring in an Empoleon, and the good thing is Umbreon can beat Empoleon if you decide to stay in all the way. We decide we're going to preserve the Umbreon for the Giratina. We're going to bring in Suicune, and we're just going to start throwing some Hydro Pumps at this thing. Even if this Hydro Pump doesn't quite knock out the Empoleon, the Snarls afterwards will. We're not too pressured to shield yet. If they shield this, we can shield and get to another Hydro Pump that would definitely take them out. So they do let it through, and we might still have to shield a Drill Peck here just to make sure we take them out. It's very close, and a Drill Peck will be very close to taking us out here. This is probably worth the shield because we've got so much energy. If the Giratina comes in, we're going to be able to hit them with 2 Ice Beams, and it does. So this is going to do big damage. I do think that shield does pay itself off here because this Giratina is going to be super low. It is a Dragon Breath Giratina, which means it's not going to build up that much energy taking out our Suicune. Probably 1 Dragon Claw's worth, which isn't super threatening. They swap out into an Alolan Muk, and we swap out straight to ours. Now, another mistake here, again, we should have stayed in with Umbreon until the Muk threw an Acid Spray at the Umbreon, and then swap to our Muk to waste the energy on them and actually clear that debuff. It probably won't matter, but in a longer drawn out matchup and depending on how they choose to play, it could make a big difference. So in that situation, it's worth staying in, throwing a last resort if you get to it before they throw a move. Once they throw, assuming it's an Acid Spray, you then swap out to your Alolan Muk, because Alolan Muk does very well against Giratina as well. Anyway, we actually get a shield, they swap out, we swap out. We're catching moves all over the place. They must have just wanted to force that shield with the Dragon Claw from our Alolan Muk. They don't quite get it, and we're going to snarl down this Giratina entirely and then dump last resorts into this Alolan Muk, get that last shield, get the health low, and hopefully put them into Poison Jab range. Now this isn't going to take them out, but it is going to get them probably into Foul Play range, gets them pretty low, and unless this is a Sludge Wave, which I think we know it's not, they've thrown Acid Spray, they've thrown Dark Pulse, so that's fine. We let it through. This Foul Play isn't going to, it will take them out if they don't shield. It's going to force the shield. We get the shield, we swap to our Alolan Muk, and I think we can just farm them down at roughly the same pace that they take us out, so they're going to surrender. GG. So swapping out straight into the Alolan Muk mirror match didn't cost us in that game, but it could in some matchups, and I do think generally it's worth getting them to debuff you and then swapping out first. Okay, another Nightmare lead. Umbreon is having a bad time in these sets, and we're really putting Suicune to the test as a safe swap. This is a Charm Alolan Ninetales as well, so it can put in a lot of work against our Umbreon if it gets chance, and can do pretty well against Alolan Muk. The Charmers really do just chip away because of that Dark typing making the damage neutral. This Alolan Ninetales stays in a long time. They throw a lot of charms, they throw a Psy Shock, they get us really low before they swap out to a Shadow Machamp, and this is just bad news. We've got Umbreon stuck between these 2 Pokemon. Alolan Muk's going to struggle against this Machamp as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring in Umbreon here because we know Umbreon is going to struggle against the Ninetales anyway. Going to absorb all this energy that the Machamp got from farming down our Suicune. Probably going to make it to 1 last resort, but we're actually going to swap out. Once the energy is drained, we swap out to Muk to start getting ahead on energy. We're going to probably shield this up because we were worried about getting farmed down by the Machamp on our Umbreon and then it just dumping Cross Chops and Rock Slides into Muk, and then there'd be nothing we can do. So we're going to get to this Dark Pulse, we get the last shield, and now it's just whether Muk can sweep the entire rest of the team with the energy advantage that it's going to get from this Machamp. They swap out straight away into an Empoleon, and this is just bad for us. We're locked in here for now against this thing. These waterfalls are going to add up. We can't take them out with the Dark Pulse, we need 2. We're not going to get there quick enough. They're going to get to this Hydro Cannon, take us out, and that means Umbreon is stuck against Machamp, Alolan Ninetales, and some of this Empoleon. So there's absolutely nothing we can do. We're staying in and throwing moves, but this is absolutely futile. At this point, it's an incredibly difficult position to be in, and that is just a team comp that we cannot win against with this team, really. It's too hard punishing to our line, so GG's. Alright, so I got one more matchup for you guys with this team, and I'm going to show you how we flip around the Clefable lead and how strong Suicune can be in the right matchup. So don't forget to subscribe, and here comes the last matchup. And as I've said, we've got a Clefable lead, so we're going to be swapping straight out into our Suicune. The tough thing about Charmers when you swap against them is that they can put in quite a lot of work quite quickly. You see that the Charms are just chunking away, and then they can swap out and almost guarantee that they still get swap advantage. But we're going to throw the Hydro Pump, they let it through, and as you can see it does quite a bit more than half, but an Ice Beam will still not KO from this range. The Ice Beam is not stab, so we're going to shield the Meteor Mash, and the fact this Clefable staying in this long means they're probably weak to Suicune in the back. We're going to throw another Hydro Pump because if they do shield this, we can just make it to a third one, but they choose to let it go through, so we've got swap advantage, and they bring in a Talonflame, so I guess they're hoping that they can just farm down, get ahead on energy, and sweep the rest of our team. We're going to get an Ice Beam off, hit them for good damage. We were a little bit worried about them throwing before we got to a move because we didn't want to shield the Suicune, but really we could have made it to a Hydro Pump. But either way, the Ice Beam does a good chunk of neutral damage. I'm going to bring in Umbreon because Umbreon can even tank a Brave Bird even after they've used a Flame Charge and amped up their attack. So we're not going to shield this. It is the Brave Bird, does a good chunk of damage. We're going to throw this Foul Play before they get chance to escape. They're going to swap out into a Togekiss. We've got Muk, we've got a shield. This game's done. It's going to be a GG. And able to take a second 3-2 set with this team. As you can see, Suicune throws a lot of opponents off that they aren't expecting it. It's nice, versatile Pokemon with solid moves that can put in a lot of work. So thank you guys so much for watching. To those of you that are already subscribed, you're absolute legends, and I'll catch you guys next time.